Oi Caveboy, the final chapters, chapters 13 and 14. In chapter 12, we found Iggy giving the idea of creating a giant mammoth, and using mammoth and catapults they managed to frighten off the no-necks. Chapter 13. Iggy, son of Urk. If Crack had looked back, he might have been surprised to see the giant mammoth had given up the chase. It had picked up speed, racing towards the river before ploughing straight into a pine tree. One of its tusks fell off and it toppled sideways, landing with a heavy thud. When the dust had settled, Iggy crawled out from the wreckage and sat down with a groan. Moments later, Hubba and several more of the son of Urks spilled out looking pale and dazed. Bits of the mammoth lay scattered all over the hillside, for in reality it was made of little more than bones, fur and a lot of imagination. Iggy looked about him at the deserted battlefield. "What happened?" "We won," said Hubba. "They ran away." "You see? I told you it would work." Hubba felt a lump on his head. "Yeah," he said, "but next time I'm doing the steering." Iggy examined one of the scoot boards that had launched them down the hill. The front was slightly dented. "Perhaps it needs something else," he said. "Something to make it stop." Loud voices announced Hammerhead and his victorious army had returned from the river. For most of the battle the chief had led his troops from a lying down position in the shade of a tree. Only once it became clear that the enemy was running away had he felt well enough to lead the attack. Iggy was surprised to see Ummerlee among the Urk warriors, muddy-faced and armed with a bone catapult. He was even more surprised when she caught his eye and smiled at him. He grinned back, remembering just in time to close his mouth so he didn't look like a gormless Urk. "Well," said Hammerhead, "they won't be back in a hurry. Has you seen 'em running from me?" The Urks looked at each other, wondering who ought to tell him. Iggy's dad cleared his throat. Hammy, I think they were running from the mammoth." "No! You mean they thought it were real?" "That were the idea." "By the horn of Urk, where's Iggy? It's him we should be thanking." Iggy came forward a little sheepishly, clutching a dented scoot board. He was worried his uncle might still blame him for the accident with the snake, but Hammerhead was speaking to Dad, and when he turned back he had something in his hand. "I think this belongs to you, young Iggy," he said, holding it out. Iggy stared. It was a wolf tooth necklace. "To me?" "Certainly. You are going to be a son of Urk." Iggy bowed, and Chief Hammerhead slipped the necklace over his head. Hubba was the first one to cheer, and the rest of the tribe joined in chanting "Urk, Urk, Urk," and jabbing their spears in the air. Iggy stood in the middle of them with his eyes shining, and a smile as wide as the river. At long last he was a warrior like his father and his grandfather before him. It turned out to be a lot harder than killing a grass snake, but he got there in the end. "Now, my boy," said the chief, putting a large arm around him, "this idea of yours, what does you call her?" "Oh, a scoot board," said Iggy. "Scoot board, And how's her work exactly?" Iggy did his best to explain. He showed the chief how he improved the design by adding wooden rollers at the front and back to increase the speed and iron out the bumps. "And can anybody do it?" asked Hammerhead, Iggy nodded. Anyone? It's deadly, enthused Hubba. It feels like you're flying. Flying, eh? Hammerhead's eyes lit up. He'd always wondered what it would feel like to fly. 10 minutes later, a big crowd gathered at the top of the hill to see the first ever attempt by an Urk chief to ride a scoot board. You sure this is a good idea? Whispered Dad. This morning he was still on his deathbed. As long as he avoids the trees, he'll be fine, said Iggy. Hammerhead was looking down the hill a little nervously. It looked a lot steeper than he remembered. Right, so I just push off, does I? Yes, push off and let her go, said Iggy. Hammerhead took a deep breath. He placed one foot on the scoot board, mouthed a prayer to the gods, and pushed off hard. The scoot board leapt forward. It trundled at first, then gained more and more speed as it dipped down the slope. Hammerhead wobbled and swayed, his face red, his arms paddling the air as he tried to stay on. At the top of the hill, the Urks whooped and cheered, urging their leader on. Go, Chief! Go, Chief! He missed the trees! Look at him go! He's flying! He's heading for the river! How's he going to... Splash! Stop! Iggy coughed. Obviously, I'm still working on that. The end. Chapter 14. One more thing. Meanwhile, high in the hills, 2 Urks were huddled in a cave, hiding from the no-neck invasion. You think we're safe? Asked Snark. Course we're safe, snapped Borg. But what if they follow us tracks? They won't. Long as we stay here and doesn't make a sound, they'll never find us. Snark pressed his cheek against the cold rock, trying not to make a sound. It was dark in the cave, much darker than the cave in the valley. He couldn't see his hand in front of his face, though maybe that was because he was sitting on his hands. Stop sniffing, said Borg. I'm not. It smells. Caves always smell. This one smells funny, whined Snark. He sniffed the air. It was a smell he didn't recognise, strong and earthy. For some reason it made his hairs rise on the back of his neck. Can you stop snuffling? Grumbled his dad. I told you I'm not. You are. You've been doing it since we got in here. That's you, said Snark. It's not me. Well then who is it? They fell quiet and listened. Snark could hear it plainly now. Slow, snuffling breathing. It echoed in the cave. Snark reached out a hand, but felt nothing except the cold, clammy wall. Getting up, he shuffled deeper into the cave, feeling his way with his hands out in front of him. His fingers brushed something silky soft, like fur. Fur that was warm and alive and furry. He blinked. In the dark, 2 large brown eyes were staring back at him. Dad! He hissed urgently, backing away. What now? There's a bear in here. Don't be a dungwit. There is! They heard an angry grunt, and the bear lolloped towards them on all fours, huge and dark, and rolling her great furry head. Grrrr! She growled. Snark! Gasped Borg. Yes? When I count to 3, run like the wind. Snark nodded, speechless with terror. 3! They ran back through the cave, out into the light, and scrambling down the hill without pausing to look back. The bear lumbered into her cave and sat down. She sniffed the air. Cheek, she thought. I can't smell anything at all. And that is the end of the story. I hope you've enjoyed sharing Oi Caveboy with me.